I sat in yet another parent-teacher conference the other day, and it was business as usual. All of the comments and feedback revolved around the things that my son, who was on the severe end of the autism spectrum, was not doing. It felt like a long list of can't do's and won't do's and doesn't do's. Parents, you know how I feel. And many would agree with what I'm about to say. And for some of you listening, this may be the first time that you've thought about this, but here it is. There is far too much discussion in research, in the media, in our schools, in churches about the deficits and the struggles related to autism. And yes, some of that's true. As a parent of boys on the autism spectrum, and as a professional who works in the field of autism, do you know what I think? I think that there's not enough conversation about what children and adults on the autism spectrum can do. And for this reason, I've compiled the following list of some, not all, but some of the more positive traits associated with people on the autism spectrum. The positive traits about people on the autism spectrum is that they can understand concrete concepts really, really well. A very cool positive trait is a lot of the people on the autism spectrum have a very quirky sense of humor. Another positive aspect of being on the autism spectrum is an ability to memorize rote material pretty easily. Another thing people on the autism spectrum can typically do well is learn chunks of information fairly quickly. Another positive aspect of the autism spectrum is being perfectionistic in approach to tasks. If you want to get a job done well and get it done precisely, ask someone on the autism spectrum to do it. People on the autism spectrum really don't take time to try to impress other people. They're just themselves. Something that I think is really cool about a positive aspect of being on the autism spectrum, people on the spectrum tend to be honest, even to a fault. They're honest. They will tell you what's on their mind. People on the autism spectrum tend to be very detail-oriented, and that's a huge advantage for projects and tasks. A positive aspect of the autism spectrum, sometimes some very exceptional skills in math, in music, and language, and other subjects. Individuality. People on the autism spectrum tend to stand out from the crowd. They're not busy trying to blend in. They're being themselves, and by being themselves, they stand out. Being on the autism spectrum often allows a person to think outside of the box. Another really cool thing, it's a positive aspect of the autism spectrum. Folks on the autism spectrum typically have a very non-judgmental attitude. Wouldn't that be refreshing to meet more people in life who are non-judgmental? Folks on the autism spectrum tend to provide a very unique perspective about life. They see things in different colors than what we do and bring something different to the table because of that. Being on the autism spectrum, another positive attribute, they have difficulties being devious. Isn't that cool? You know, no sneaking around or telling little white lies. Tend to be very truthful. Like I said before, honest to a fault, and for that reason, hardly ever, if ever, devious. Positive attribute of being on the autism spectrum is being very passionate with a very strong sense of things that they like. Folks on the autism spectrum tend to think in visual ways, and for that reason are able to contribute to different ideas and concepts because of the way that they see things in their world. It's not uncommon for our society to equate a person's value with what that person is capable of achieving or accomplishing in their life. In other words, value is related to what people do, and that's a misperception. The reality is that because we are created in the image of God, temporarily abled and disabled alike, our value is in who we are. The Holy Scriptures remind us that everyone we're ever going to meet is made in the image of God, to include those on the autism spectrum. And I can't think of anything more positive than that.